Some stories stay with you long after you hear them, changing the way you see people and challenging every assumption you thought you knew. This is one of those stories, and it happened right in front of me at the Phoenix Tactical Academy in Arizona. What started as casual workplace mockery turned into one of the most humbling experiences I've ever witnessed. And by the end, everyone involved learned that you should never judge someone by their uniform, especially when that uniform happens to be a coffee shop apron. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is David Chun, and for the past 8 years, I've been the lead firearms instructor at Phoenix Tactical Academy, one of the Southwest's premier private security training facilities. We specialize in preparing corporate security teams, private military contractors, and law enforcement officers for high-stakes situations. Our clientele includes Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and international security firms who need their people trained to the highest possible standards. The academy sits on 40 acres of Arizona desert, complete with multiple shooting ranges, tactical obstacle courses, and specialized training facilities designed to simulate everything, from urban warfare to hostage rescue scenarios. Our equipment is state-of-the-art, our instructors are former military elite, and our reputation for excellence draws clients from across the globe. It's serious business with serious people handling serious situations. Right across the street from our main entrance sits a small coffee shop called Desert Brew, owned by a cheerful woman named Rosa Martinez. The place became an unofficial gathering spot for our trainees and instructors, serving the kind of strong coffee that keeps tactical teams alert during long training sessions. Rosa had hired a young woman about 6 months earlier to help with the morning rush when our courses were in session, and that's where Maya Thompson enters this story. Maya was 28, quiet, and had the kind of unassuming presence that made her blend into the background of any room. She wore the standard coffee shop uniform of black jeans, white t-shirt, and green apron, her long brown hair usually pulled back in a simple ponytail. She made excellent coffee, was unfailingly polite to customers, and seemed content to work her shifts without drawing much attention to herself. To most of the Tactical Academy's clientele, she was simply part of the furniture, someone who existed to serve their caffeine needs before they went off to their important training exercises. This particular story begins on a scorching Tuesday morning in July, when the mercury was already pushing 90 degrees at 7 a.m. and the desert sun was promising another brutal day. I was reviewing training schedules in my office when I heard the familiar rumble of transport vehicles arriving for the week's advanced weapons training course. This particular group was a mixed bag of corporate security personnel and private contractors, led by someone who would become the antagonist of this entire situation. His name was Marcus Webb, a former Army Ranger who'd transitioned into private military contracting after leaving active duty 3 years earlier. Webb was everything you'd expect from someone trying to build a reputation in the private sector, confident to the point of arrogance, equipped with the latest tactical gear, and possessed of the kind of swagger that came from believing his military credentials made him superior to everyone around him. He'd brought a team of 8 contractors with him, all cut from similar cloth, all convinced that their background gave them automatic authority over anyone who hadn't served. Webb was the type who made sure everyone knew about his credentials. Within minutes of meeting him, he'd casually work into conversation his deployment history, his specialized training, and his current high-paying contracts with unnamed government agencies. His gear was immaculate, his weapons were custom-built precision instruments, and he treated every interaction like a performance designed to demonstrate his expertise. The morning's drama began innocuously enough. Webb and his team had arrived early for their 7:30 briefing and decided to grab coffee from Desert Brew before the session began. I watched from my office window as they filed into the small shop, their tactical boots and cargo pants making them look like an occupying force in the cozy space filled with local artwork and mismatched furniture. Maya was working alone that morning, Rosa having left early for a doctor's appointment. She handled the sudden influx of customers with her usual quiet efficiency, taking orders and preparing drinks without fuss or fanfare. I couldn't hear the conversation from my distance, but I could see Webb gesturing animatedly while she worked, clearly holding court for his team's entertainment. What I learned later was that Webb had decided to use Maya as a teaching moment. For his contractors, a living example of what he considered to be civilian naivety about military matters. He'd started by asking her questions about the tactical academy, whether she found the constant sound of gunfire disturbing, if she understood what kind of serious training happened across the street. Her polite, brief responses seemed to amuse him, and he began to escalate his comments. "Must be nice to have such a simple job," he'd said loud enough for his entire team to hear, while Maya steamed milk for his latte. "Make coffee, take money, go home. No life or death decisions, no split-second judgments that determine if people live or die." Maya had simply nodded and continued working, but Webb wasn't finished. He'd apparently decided that her lack of reaction indicated a lack of understanding about the importance of what he and his team did for a living. "You probably don't even realize how much training goes into what we do," he continued, warming to his theme. "Years of specialized education, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equipment, constant practice to maintain skills that keep people alive. It's a different world from serving lattes." The rest of his team had begun to chuckle, feeding off their leader's energy and joining in the casual condescension. One of them, a younger contractor named Pete Savage, decided to push the conversation further. "Bet she's never even seen a real weapon up close," Savage said, grinning at his colleagues. "Probably thinks they work like they do in movies." Maya had finished preparing their orders and was arranging the drinks on the counter when Webb made the comment that would change everything. "That's the problem with civilians," he announced, clearly enjoying his audience. "They have no concept of the skill and precision required for tactical operations. They see us as just guys with guns, not understanding the years of training behind every movement, every decision." He'd picked up his latte and made a show of examining it critically. "Take something like weapons assembly," he continued. "Most people think you just snap a few pieces together like a toy. They don't understand the mechanical precision, the muscle memory, the split-second timing required in combat situations." That's when Maya spoke up for the first time during the entire interaction. 6 seconds, she said quietly, not looking up from wiping down the counter. Webb paused, his cup halfway to his lips. "What did you say?" 6 seconds, Maya repeated, still not making eye contact. "That's how long it takes to field strip and reassemble an M24 sniper rifle." The coffee shop went completely quiet. Webb's team exchanged glances, suddenly uncertain whether they'd heard correctly. Webb himself seemed to be processing what he'd just heard, trying to decide if the quiet barista had actually just made a technical comment about military weaponry. "Excuse me?" Webb said, his voice carrying a note of disbelief mixed with condescension. "Did you just try to tell me about sniper rifle assembly?" Maya finally looked up, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "I wasn't trying to tell you anything," she said calmly. "You were talking about weapons assembly. I was just mentioning that 6 seconds is the standard time for breaking down and rebuilding an M24. The silence that followed was filled with tension. Webb's team was watching this exchange like spectators at a tennis match, their heads turning between their leader and the woman who'd just demonstrated knowledge that contradicted their assumptions about her. Webb recovered his composure quickly, but his response carried an edge that hadn't been there before. "Well," he said with a forced laugh. I guess someone's been watching YouTube videos. That's cute, but there's a difference between theoretical knowledge and actual capability. Of course, Maya replied simply, returning to her cleaning routine. But something had shifted in the dynamic. Webb's easy confidence had cracked slightly, and his team had picked up on it. What should have been a simple coffee stop had become something else entirely, and everyone in the room seemed to sense that a line had been crossed. Webb wasn't finished, though. Having his expertise questioned by a coffee shop employee in front of his contractors was not something he could let slide. You know what, he said, setting down his cup with deliberate force. I'd love to see this supposed expertise in action. Easy to talk about 6-second assembly times when you're making coffee. Maya continued wiping the counter, but I could see from my office that her movements had become more deliberate, more focused. I wouldn't want to interrupt your training schedule, she said politely. Oh, this wouldn't be an interruption, Webb replied, his voice taking on the tone of someone who'd found an opportunity to prove a point. This would be educational. For everyone involved. The gauntlet had been thrown down in a coffee shop in the Arizona desert, and everyone present understood that what had started as casual mockery was about to become something much more significant. What happened next unfolded with the inevitable momentum of a landslide. Webb pulled out his phone and began making calls, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to getting his way. Within 20 minutes, he'd arranged for the Academy's afternoon session to include what he was calling a practical demonstration of civilian misconceptions about tactical operations. I should have intervened at that point. As the lead instructor, I had the authority to shut down what was clearly becoming a setup for public humiliation. But something held me back, perhaps curiosity about how this unusual confrontation would resolve itself, or maybe a nagging sense that there was more to Maya than any of us understood. Rosa Martinez had returned from her appointment just as Webb was finishing his phone calls, and the situation was quickly explained to her. Credit, Rosa immediately moved to protect her employee, suggesting that perhaps this wasn't the right time or place for such demonstrations. But Maya surprised everyone by quietly accepting Webb's challenge, asking only that the demonstration wait until after the morning coffee rush was finished. Word spread through the academy with the speed that gossip travels in close-knit professional communities. By lunchtime, nearly everyone on the facility knew that the quiet barista from across the street had somehow gotten herself into a weapons assembly contest with one of our most arrogant visiting instructors. The general consensus was that this would be a brief and embarrassing lesson in the difference between talking and doing. Webb spent his lunch break holding court in our main briefing room, regaling anyone who would listen with stories of his military service and predictions about the afternoon's demonstration. His 8-man team had become an enthusiastic audience, feeding off their leader's confidence and adding their own commentary about civilian misconceptions regarding military capabilities. The thing about people who've never served, Webb explained, to a growing crowd of academy staff and trainees, is they think they understand complex systems based on movies or internet research. They don't grasp the muscle memory, the pressure, the precision required when lives are on the line. Pete Savage, who'd been the first to join in the coffee shop mockery, had taken on the role of Webb's unofficial spokesman. 6 seconds. He repeated with exaggerated amazement, for an M24 breakdown in assembly. I'd love to see her try to handle a precision instrument like that without dropping pieces all over the floor. The demonstration had been scheduled for 2 o'clock in our main classroom, a space typically used for technical briefings and equipment familiarization. Webb had requested that several different weapon systems be made available, ostensibly to give Maya options, but clearly intending to overwhelm her with choices she wouldn't understand. Our academy's armorer, a methodical man named Jim Rodriguez, had laid out an impressive array of equipment on the central table. There was indeed an M24 sniper rifle, along with several assault rifles, a precision R15 build, and various accessories and tools. The setup looked like something from a military supplier's catalog, all gleaming metal and composite materials arranged with professional precision. By 1:50, the classroom was packed. Word had somehow spread beyond the academy, and several off-duty police officers and security personnel from neighboring facilities had shown up to witness what everyone was calling either the humiliation of a presumptuous barista or the most surprising upset in Phoenix Tactical Academy history. Maya arrived exactly at 2 o'clock, still wearing her coffee shop apron over her work clothes. She'd changed from sneakers to a pair of worn military-style boots, the first hint that perhaps her background wasn't quite as simple as everyone assumed. She moved through the crowd with the same quiet composure she displayed behind the coffee counter, seemingly unbothered by the dozens of eyes tracking her every movement. Webb was in his element, playing to the crowd like a showman about to reveal the obvious conclusion of an elaborate setup. He'd changed into full tactical gear for the demonstration, complete with plate carrier, tactical pants, and combat gloves, looking every inch the professional warrior among a room full of similarly equipped personnel. "Ladies and gentlemen," Webb announced, his voice carrying the practiced authority of someone comfortable with public speaking. "What we have here is a perfect example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's when people with limited knowledge overestimate their own competence in a given area." He gestured toward Maya, who was quietly examining the weapons laid out on the table. "Our barista friend here has somehow gotten the impression that years of specialized military training can be replicated through casual observation or internet research. What we're about to witness is the difference between theory and practice." The crowd murmured appreciatively. This was exactly the kind of lesson that reinforced their own sense of professional superiority, confirmation that their training and experience created meaningful distinctions between them and the civilian world. Maya had picked up the M24 and was examining it with what looked like casual interest, turning it over in her hands like someone might handle an unfamiliar tool. To most observers, her movements seemed tentative, uncertain, exactly what they'd expected from someone about to be exposed as a pretender. But I was watching more carefully than the others, and something about her handling suggested a different story. Her fingers found the weapon's balance point immediately. Her grip was instinctively correct, and her examination of the rifle's components was systematic rather than random. These weren't the movements of someone seeing a precision weapon for the first time. "The M24 sniper weapon system," Webb announced, launching into what was clearly a prepared lecture, "is a bolt-action precision rifle based on the Remington Model 700 platform. It requires specialized training to operate effectively, and its assembly involves precise mechanical tolerances that can't be approximated through guesswork." He paused dramatically, clearly enjoying his moment in the spotlight. "Field stripping and reassembly under combat conditions requires extensive practice and muscle memory developed through repetitive training. The idea that someone without military background could perform these operations in 6 seconds is frankly absurd." Maya had finished her examination of the rifle and was now looking directly at Webb. "Would you like me to proceed?" she asked quietly. "By all means," Webb replied with exaggerated courtesy. "Please, show us this remarkable 6-second assembly." What happened next occurred so quickly that several witnesses later claimed they'd missed crucial details despite watching intently. Maya's movements transformed from casual examination to fluid precision so abruptly that it seemed like she'd become a different person entirely. Her hands moved across the weapon with the kind of automatic certainty that comes from thousands of repetitions. The rifle came apart in her grip as if it were designed to disassemble itself, components separating and laying themselves out in perfect order on the table. There was no hesitation, no searching for the next step, no conscious thought visible in her actions. The reassembly was even more impressive. Pieces flowed back together under her fingers like they were magnetically attracted to their proper positions. The bolt slid home with a satisfying click, the scope mount aligned perfectly, and the completed weapon lay before her exactly as it had started. Jim Rodriguez, who'd been watching with professional interest, consulted the stopwatch he'd been holding. 5.7 seconds, he announced, his voice carrying a note of disbelief. The classroom had gone completely silent. Webb's confident expression had frozen into something resembling confusion, and his team of contractors was staring at Maya like she'd just performed magic. The crowd of observers seemed collectively to be holding their breath, trying to process what they'd witnessed. Maya set the completed rifle back on the table and looked up at Webb expectantly. Was that satisfactory? She asked in the same polite tone she used to ask customers about their preferred coffee strength. Webb's recovery was admirable, if predictable. "Well," he said, forcing a laugh that didn't quite hide his surprise, "I suppose YouTube University teaches some interesting tricks these days. Of course, there's more to tactical operations than party tricks with familiar equipment." The subtle shift in his language wasn't lost on anyone present. The N-24 had suddenly become familiar equipment, and Maya's demonstration had been relegated to a party trick. It was the kind of defensive repositioning that happens when someone's expertise is unexpectedly challenged. But Webb wasn't finished. Having his authority questioned in front of a room full of tactical professionals was not something he could allow to pass unchallenged. If Maya had somehow managed to learn one specific skill through whatever means, he was determined to expose the limitations of her knowledge in areas where YouTube tutorials wouldn't suffice. "Tell you what," Webb said, his voice taking on the tone of someone offering a generous opportunity. "Let's make this more interesting. Anyone can memorize the mechanical steps for one specific weapon system. Real tactical proficiency requires adaptability, decision-making under pressure, and the kind of comprehensive knowledge that comes from actual field experience." He gestured toward the other weapons on the table. "How about we test some real-world scenarios? Time pressures, equipment malfunctions, tactical decision-making. That's where we separate the pretenders from the professionals." Maya considered this for a moment, her expression unreadable. Around the room, the audience was leaning forward, sensing that the afternoon's entertainment was far from over. What had started as a simple demonstration was evolving into something that felt much more consequential. "What did you have in mind?" Maya asked. Webb's smile returned, broader than before. He was back in familiar territory, the kind of comprehensive challenge that would surely expose whatever limitations lay behind Maya's surprising initial performance. This was his chance to reestablish the natural order of things, to demonstrate that real expertise couldn't be faked when the pressure increased and the complexity multiplied. "I'm thinking," Webb said slowly, "we need to test the full range of tactical weapons handling. Multiple systems, time pressure, and some realistic complications. After all, if someone claims to understand this field, they should be able to demonstrate that understanding across multiple platforms." The room buzzed with anticipation as everyone realized they were about to witness either a complete disaster or something nobody had expected when they'd walked into the classroom that afternoon. Webb's expanded challenge involved what he called a realistic tactical scenario. He'd convinced Jim Rodriguez to set up a complex drill involving multiple weapon systems, simulated equipment failures, and time constraints designed to overwhelm someone with limited experience. The challenge would require Maya to demonstrate proficiency with 3 different rifles, troubleshoot deliberate malfunctions, and complete each task within specific time limits, while Webb provided running commentary designed to increase pressure. "In real tactical situations," Webb explained to the captivated audience, "you don't get to choose your equipment or your circumstances. You work with what's available, adapt to failures, and perform under stress that would break most people. That's the difference between playing with weapons and actual operational capability." He'd arranged for the classroom lights to be dimmed, simulating low-light conditions, and had background audio playing sounds of gunfire and radio chatter to create additional sensory stress. It was an impressive setup that would challenge even experienced operators, clearly designed to push Maya far beyond whatever limited skills she might possess. Maya listened to Webb's explanation with the same patient attention she gave to customers explaining complicated coffee orders. When he finished outlining the challenge, she simply nodded and asked, "Should I begin now?" The first weapon was an Rifle-15 platform that Rodriguez had deliberately modified with a malfunctioning bolt carrier group. The average shooter would spend precious minutes diagnosing the problem, but Maya identified the issue within seconds and had the rifle functioning properly before Webb could finish his first disparaging comment about civilian mechanical aptitude. The second test involved a precision rifle with a scope that had been intentionally knocked out of alignment. This was supposed to be the breakthrough moment where Maya's limitations would become obvious, since proper scope adjustment required understanding of ballistics, environmental factors, and mathematical calculations that couldn't be learned from casual observation. Maya examined the scope mount, made 3 precise adjustments, and test-fired a single shot that landed dead center on the target at the far end of the classroom. The silence that followed was heavier than before, loaded with the growing realization that something significant was happening. But it was the third challenge that changed everything. Webb had saved what he considered his trump card for last, a completely disassembled sniper rifle with components from 2 different weapon systems mixed together. The task required identifying which parts belonged to which rifle, separating them correctly, and assembling 2 complete weapons simultaneously. "This," Webb announced with renewed confidence, "is where we separate professional knowledge from amateur enthusiasm. This requires the kind of systematic understanding that comes from years of specialized training." Maya approached the table, covered with seemingly random rifle components, and began sorting through them with methodical precision. But as she worked, something remarkable happened. Her movements became faster, more fluid, more automatic than anything the audience had witnessed before. She wasn't just identifying components. She was handling them with the unconscious mastery that comes from intimate familiarity. Rodriguez, who'd been timing each challenge, found himself watching Maya's hands rather than his stopwatch. "I've never seen anyone move like that," he whispered to me. "She's not thinking about what to do next. Her hands know where everything goes." The 2 rifles took shape under Maya's fingers with what appeared to be impossible speed. Components flew together as if assembling themselves, and within minutes she had 2 complete, functional weapon systems laid out before her. But more than the speed or accuracy, it was the effortless nature of her performance that left the room speechless. Webb's confident expression had completely disappeared, replaced by something approaching bewilderment. His team of contractors was staring at Maya like she'd revealed supernatural powers, and the broader audience was beginning to murmur among themselves as they tried to process what they'd witnessed. That's when Maya spoke up in a way that changed the entire dynamic of the room. "Mr. Webb," she said quietly, "I think there might be some confusion about my background." She reached into her back pocket and pulled out a worn leather wallet, extracting what appeared to be an identification card. "My name is Maya Thompson, and I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer, United States Army Special Operations Command. I spent 12 years as a precision marksman instructor at the Special Operations Target Interdiction course." The silence that followed was absolute. Webb's face had gone completely white, and several people in the audience were openly staring. The Special Operations Target Interdiction course was legendary in tactical circles, the most advanced sniper training program in the military, responsible for training the elite marksmen who operated in the most dangerous environments worldwide. Maya continued in the same calm voice she'd used to take coffee orders that morning. "I left active duty 8 months ago and took the job at Desert Brew because I wanted something peaceful while I figured out what to do next. I wasn't trying to hide my background, but I also wasn't advertising it. Most people assume baristas don't have interesting previous careers. Rodriguez had moved closer to examine Maya's identification, and his professional confirmation carried. Across the silent room, Chief Warrant Officer Thompson graduated top of her class from the Special Operations Target Interdiction course. Served as lead instructor for 4 years. This is legitimate. The revelation recontextualized everything. That had happened, not just that afternoon, but over the previous months. Maya's quiet competence, her unflappable demeanor under pressure, her systematic approach to tasks, and her complete lack of reaction to mockery suddenly made perfect sense. She'd been dealing with Webb's condescension the same way she'd handled hostile situations in war zones, with professional calm and devastating competence. Webb's recovery attempt was painful to witness. "Well," he stammered, "why didn't you say something earlier? We could have avoided this whole misunderstanding." Maya's response was delivered with the same polite tone she used with difficult customers. "You didn't ask about my background, Mr. Webb. You made assumptions based on my current job and decided those assumptions gave you permission to be disrespectful. I was content to let you continue thinking whatever you wanted to think." The broader implications of Maya's revelation began rippling through the room. Several academy instructors were quietly discussing the possibility of bringing her on as a consultant. Students who'd witnessed the demonstration were already spreading word through their networks about the retired special operations instructor who'd been serving them coffee for months. But the most significant change was happening with Webb's own team. Pete Savage, who'd been the most enthusiastic participant in the morning's mockery, approached Maya with obvious embarrassment. "Ma'am, I want to apologize for my behavior this morning. It was inappropriate and disrespectful." One by one, the rest of Webb's contractors followed suit, offering apologies and expressing genuine interest in learning from someone with Maya's credentials. Their leader, however, seemed incapable of accepting the new reality, continuing to make excuses and minimize what had happened. "Look," Webb said, his voice carrying a defensive edge, "anyone can have impressive credentials on paper. Real tactical proficiency is about performance under genuine stress, not classroom demonstrations." It was exactly the wrong thing to say to a room full of people who just witnessed Maya systematically dismantle every challenge he'd designed to expose her limitations. The collective mood shifted perceptibly, and several people began sharing their own thoughts about Webb's afternoon performance. "From where I was sitting," said one of the Academy's senior instructors, "Chief Warrant Officer Thompson just handled pressure better than anyone else in this room. She performed flawlessly while being openly mocked by people who should have known better." The next morning brought consequences that Webb hadn't anticipated. 3 of his 8 contractors had approached Academy administration about switching to different training programs, specifically requesting instruction from Maya if she could be persuaded to teach. 2 others had submitted formal complaints about Webb's leadership style and his creation of a hostile training environment. More significantly, word of the previous day's events had spread throughout the regional tactical training community. By noon, Maya had received calls from 4 different law enforcement agencies asking about her availability for specialized training programs. The Phoenix Police Department SWAT team wanted to discuss long-range precision courses, and a federal agency I couldn't name had inquired about her consulting rates. Rosa Martinez, who'd watched the entire drama unfold with a mixture of pride and amazement, offered Maya whatever schedule flexibility she needed to pursue these new opportunities. "I always knew you were special," she told Maya while they prepared. "The morning coffee rush. I just didn't realize how special." Maya's response was characteristically modest. "I make good coffee, and I know how to handle rifles. Both skills are useful in their own ways." But the transformation at Phoenix Tactical Academy was already underway. Maya had agreed to teach a weekly precision shooting seminar and the first class was overbooked within hours of being announced. Her teaching style, developed through years of training elite operators, was methodical, patient, and devastatingly effective. 6 months later, the Academy had become known throughout the Southwest for producing students with exceptional long-range capabilities. Maya's students were being recruited by federal agencies and elite military units, and her waiting list extended for nearly a year. Webb, meanwhile, had found his contracting opportunities significantly reduced after word spread about his behavior toward a decorated veteran. His inability to show proper respect for Maya's service and expertise had created a reputation problem that followed him throughout the professional community. The most lasting change, however, was philosophical. The Maya Thompson incident, as it became known, served as a permanent reminder to never judge someone's capabilities based on their current circumstances. Students at the Academy learned not just precision shooting techniques, but the importance of recognizing expertise wherever it might be found. Maya continued working at Desert Brew 3 days a week, serving coffee to Academy students and instructors, who now understood exactly who was making their morning lattes. But the respect she commanded had nothing to do with her military credentials and everything to do with the quiet professionalism she brought to every task, whether assembling sniper rifles or steaming milk for cappuccinos. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one you never notice, and sometimes the greatest expertise comes wrapped in the most unassuming packages. Maya Thompson proved both lessons in the space of a single afternoon, and everyone who witnessed it learned something they'd never forget about assumptions, respect, and the hidden depths that people carry within them. The real test of Maya's transformation from underestimated barista to respected instructor came 18 months later, when a crisis unfolded that would validate everything she'd been teaching at Phoenix Tactical Academy. It started with a phone call that woke me at 3 in the morning and ended with a hostage situation that would change how law enforcement agencies across the Southwest approached precision shooting training. Detective Sarah Kim from Phoenix Police Department SWAT unit was on the other end of the line, her voice tense with urgency. "David, we need Maya Thompson. Now. We've got a barricaded suspect holding 2 hostages in a downtown office building, and our primary sniper is down with food poisoning. The backup shooter doesn't have the angle we need, and the situation is deteriorating fast." Maya had been working with the Phoenix PD SWAT team for 8 months, developing their long-range precision capabilities and teaching advanced techniques that most civilian law enforcement agencies couldn't access. Her students included some of the department's most skilled marksmen, but this was the first time her training would be tested in a real-world life-or-death situation. I drove to Maya's apartment through empty Phoenix streets, the pre-dawn darkness, broken only by the occasional streetlight and the distant glow of the city center where the crisis was unfolding. Maya answered her door already dressed in tactical gear, her precision rifle case slung over her shoulder. She'd been monitoring police radio traffic since Kim's call came in. Suspect is Harold Morrison, 43, former military explosives expert with a history of domestic violence, Maya said as we drove toward the incident command post. He's holding his ex-wife and her attorney on the 14th floor of the Meridian building. SWAT has the building surrounded, but Morrison has positioned himself where conventional sniper positions can't get a clean shot. The scene at Meridian building was controlled chaos illuminated by floodlights and emergency vehicles. Incident Commander Lieutenant James Foster briefed Maya while police sharpshooters maintained overwatch from surrounding buildings. The situation had been ongoing for 4 hours, with Morrison becoming increasingly agitated and making increasingly specific threats against his hostages. "We need someone who can make an extreme angle shot," Foster explained, pointing to tactical diagrams of the building layout. Morrison's positioned himself in a corner office where our standard positions can't see him clearly. The only viable angle is from the building across the street, but it's a downward shot through a narrow window opening at nearly 400 yards. Maya studied the diagrams with the same methodical attention she brought to everything else. "What's the wind situation?" "Variable and unpredictable," responded Officer Martinez, one of Maya's former students who is now the department's backup precision shooter. "Downtown creates wind tunnels that shift constantly. Plus we're dealing with thermal currents from all these buildings." The technical challenges were formidable. The shot would require compensating for extreme downward angle, unpredictable wind patterns, and the psychological pressure of knowing that 2 innocent lives hung in the balance. It was exactly the kind of scenario that separated theoretical knowledge from operational capability. Maya spent 20 minutes studying the situation from multiple vantage points, using binoculars to analyze wind patterns and sight lines. Her assessment was characteristically direct. "It's doable, but marginal. I need to get into position and read the conditions in real time." The sniper position was on the roof of an office building 4 blocks away, accessed through a maintenance stairwell that left Maya and her spotter completely exposed to the elements. Wind gusts swirled between the buildings with unpredictable force, and the target window was barely visible even through high-powered optics. Maya set up her rifle with the same deliberate precision she demonstrated in the academy classroom. But now the stakes were measured in human lives rather than professional reputation. Her spotter was Officer Rodriguez, another academy graduate who'd specifically requested advanced training after witnessing Maya's initial demonstration. "Target is visible," Rodriguez reported through his spotting scope. "Morrison is pacing back and forth near the window. Hostages appear to be tied to chairs, approximately 6 feet behind him." Maya settled into her shooting position and began the process of reading conditions that couldn't be calculated by computers or predicted by weather reports. This was the kind of intuitive marksmanship that came from thousands of hours of practice, combined with an almost supernatural ability to read environmental factors. "Wind is shifting every 30 seconds, she reported to the incident commander through her radio. "I need to wait for a stable pocket." Minutes stretched like hours. As Maya maintained perfect position, her breathing controlled and her focus absolute. Through her scope, she could see Morrison becoming increasingly agitated, his movements more erratic as negotiators failed to establish meaningful communication. That's when the situation took a turn that demanded immediate action. Morrison had apparently grown tired of the standoff and was moving toward one of the hostages with what appeared to be a knife. The incident commander's voice crackled through the radio with deadly urgency. "Green light, take the shot." Maya's training took over completely. Years of muscle memory and thousands of practice rounds had prepared her for exactly this moment, when conscious thought had to give way to pure instinct and technique. She waited for the wind to settle, found her natural respiratory pause, and squeezed the trigger with the kind of precision that can't be taught, only developed through relentless practice. The shot broke clean and true, covering 412 yards in less than half a second. Morrison collapsed instantly, the knife falling harmlessly to the floor, as SWAT officers stormed the building to secure the hostages. Both victims were unharmed, shaken but safe, and the crisis that had paralyzed downtown Phoenix for 6 hours was over in the space of a single precisely placed bullet. The aftermath brought the kind of attention that Maya had never sought, but couldn't avoid. The Phoenix Police Department's after-action report specifically credited her training program with developing the capabilities that made the successful resolution possible. Officer Rodriguez, whose spotting had been flawless, under extreme pressure, publicly acknowledged that Maya's instruction had prepared him for conditions that conventional training never addressed. More significantly, the incident triggered a wave of interest from law enforcement agencies throughout the region. Within a month, Maya had received training requests from departments in Nevada, California, Colorado, and New Mexico. Her reputation spread through professional networks that valued results over credentials, and her calendar filled with specialized courses designed for situations that most instructors never encountered. The transformation at Phoenix Tactical Academy accelerated dramatically. What had started as weekly seminars expanded into comprehensive programs that attracted students from federal agencies, military special operations units, and elite law enforcement teams. Maya's teaching methodology, which emphasized understanding over technology and judgment over speed, became the foundation for a new approach to precision shooting instruction. The academy itself evolved to support Maya's expanded role. New facilities were constructed specifically for long-range training, including a 1,000-yard range that could simulate the kind of challenging conditions Maya's students might face in real operations. The waiting list for her courses extended beyond 2 years, and her graduates were recruited by agencies that had never heard of Phoenix Tactical Academy before Maya's arrival. But perhaps the most satisfying change was cultural. The incident with Webb had become legendary within the tactical training community, not just for its dramatic reversal of expectations, but for the lesson it taught about recognizing expertise in unexpected places. New students arriving at the Phoenix Academy were briefed on the importance of respect and professional courtesy, with Maya's story serving as both inspiration and warning. Webb himself had disappeared from the Southwest tactical training scene entirely, his reputation damaged beyond repair by his treatment of a decorated veteran. His former contractors had all found new employment, with several specifically seeking out training opportunities under Maya's instruction. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Maya continued working at Desert Brew 2 mornings a week, not because she needed the income, but because she genuinely enjoyed the routine and the connection to normal life that coffee service provided. Regular customers who knew her background would sometimes ask about her military service or her teaching, but most simply appreciated the care she brought to their morning coffee ritual. The lessons learned at Phoenix Tactical Academy spread far beyond precision shooting techniques. Maya had proven that excellence could be found in the most unexpected places, that assumptions based on appearance or current circumstances were dangerous and limiting, and that respect must be earned through character rather than demanded through credentials. Students who trained under Maya carried these lessons with them throughout their careers, creating a ripple effect that changed how entire agencies approached both training and personnel evaluation. The quiet barista who assembled a sniper rifle in 6 seconds had become a catalyst for transformation that extended far beyond her individual capabilities. Years later, when new instructors joined the academy staff, they would invariably hear the story of Maya Thompson and the afternoon that changed everything. It served as a reminder that expertise comes in many forms, that judgment matters more than equipment, and that the most important lessons are often taught by people you'd never expect to be teachers. The coffee shop across from Phoenix Tactical Academy still serves excellent coffee, and Maya still makes some of the best lattes in the Southwest. But everyone who enters Desert Brew now understands that they're being served by someone whose quiet competence represents the very best of what dedication, skill, and character can achieve. 5 years have passed since Maya Thompson first assembled that sniper rifle in 6 seconds, and the ripple effects of that single afternoon continue to reshape how the tactical training community approaches expertise, respect, and human potential. What began as a coffee shop confrontation has evolved into something approaching a revolution in military and law enforcement education, with Maya's philosophy spreading through professional networks that now span continents. The Phoenix Tactical Academy has become something entirely different from what it was before Maya's arrival. Where once we focused primarily on equipment and technology, the curriculum now emphasizes what Maya calls integrated competence, the seamless blending of technical skill, situational awareness, and character-based decision-making. Students who graduate from our programs are sought after not just for their shooting ability, but for their judgment under pressure and their capacity to perform when conventional methods fail. Maya's influence extends far beyond precision marksmanship. Her approach to teaching has been adopted by instructors across multiple disciplines, creating a new standard for professional development that values depth over flashiness and substance over presentation. The methodology she developed has been formally documented in a manual that's become required reading at military training facilities throughout North America and Europe. The manual itself tells an interesting story about how Maya's reputation has evolved. Originally published as a limited circulation training guide for Phoenix PD's SWAT unit, it caught the attention of federal law enforcement agencies who began requesting copies for their own programs. Word spread through military channels, and before long, Maya was fielding requests from special operations units in 12 different countries. The content of the manual reflects Maya's fundamental philosophy that effective training must address the whole person, not just technical skills. Chapters on equipment maintenance are interwoven with discussions of mental discipline. Sections on ballistic calculations include extensive coverage of stress management and decision-making under pressure. Most importantly, the manual emphasizes that true expertise comes from understanding principles rather than memorizing procedures. This holistic approach has produced remarkable results in real-world applications. Law enforcement agencies using Maya's training methods report significant improvements in officer performance during high-stress situations, with particular gains in accuracy under pressure and tactical decision-making. Military units that have adopted her techniques show enhanced performance in precision shooting scenarios, but also demonstrate improved overall unit cohesion and professional development. The success stories have become legendary within professional circles. A federal marshal's task force credited Maya's training with the successful resolution of a hostage situation in Denver, where officers had to make precision shots in urban conditions that would have been impossible using conventional methods. A special operations unit operating in Afghanistan reported that techniques learned from Maya's program enabled mission success in an environment where standard equipment failed due to environmental conditions. Perhaps most significantly, Maya's story has changed how military and law enforcement agencies recruit and evaluate personnel. The assumption that expertise must be obvious or conventionally credentialed has given way to more nuanced approaches that recognize talent in unexpected places. Recruitment programs now specifically seek candidates with diverse backgrounds, understanding that valuable skills can be developed in civilian contexts that translate effectively to tactical applications. This shift in perspective has had profound implications for career development within these organizations. Officers and soldiers who might have been overlooked under previous systems are now being identified and developed for specialized roles. The result has been a significant improvement in overall capability and a more inclusive professional culture that values contribution over conventional markers of status. Maya herself has evolved into something she never expected to become: a thought leader whose influence extends far beyond tactical training. She's been invited to speak at professional conferences, consult with government agencies on training policy, and contribute to research projects studying human performance under extreme conditions. Her calendar is booked years in advance with requests for specialized instruction and consultation. Yet she remains remarkably unchanged in her fundamental approach to life and work. 3 mornings a week, she still serves coffee at Desert Brew, still maintains the same quiet professionalism that initially made her invisible to the tactical community. Regular customers who've known her for years report that fame and recognition haven't altered her personality or her dedication to making excellent coffee. This consistency has become part of Maya's legend. Students arriving at Phoenix Tactical Academy for the first time often express surprise at finding their instructor behind the coffee counter. But veterans of her programs understand that this apparent contradiction perfectly embodies her teaching philosophy. Excellence isn't about seeking recognition or displaying credentials. It's about bringing complete commitment to whatever task is at hand. The coffee shop itself has become an unofficial pilgrimage site for tactical professionals who want to experience firsthand the humble setting where Maya's story began. Rosa Martinez reports that customers now travel from across the country specifically to have coffee served by the woman who revolutionized precision shooting instruction. The shop's walls display photographs and testimonials from law enforcement officers and military personnel whose lives have been positively impacted by Maya's teaching. One particularly moving testimonial comes from Officer Lisa Chun of the Sacramento Police Department, who credits Maya's training with saving her life during a downtown shooting incident. "Everything I learned from Maya came together in that moment," Chun wrote. "Not just the shoot-in technique, but the mental discipline, the ability to read situations, the confidence to trust my training even when everything was chaotic. I went home to my family that night because Maya taught me to be ready for the unexpected." Similar stories arrive regularly from around the world, each one reinforcing the global impact of lessons that began in a Phoenix coffee shop. A counter-terrorism unit in France reports that Maya's stress management techniques enabled successful operations in high-pressure urban environments. An Australian Special Forces team credits her environmental reading methods with mission success in challenging desert conditions that defeated conventional approaches. The broader tactical training industry has been forced to evolve in response to Maya's influence. Traditional programs that focus primarily on equipment and technical procedures have expanded their curricula to include more comprehensive approaches to human performance. Competitors who initially dismissed Maya's methods as unscientific have quietly adopted similar techniques as their effectiveness became undeniable. This industry transformation has had economic implications as well. Phoenix Tactical Academies revenue has increased by over 400% since Maya joined the staff, driven by demand for her specialized programs. The academy has expanded its facilities multiple times and now employs instructors specifically trained in Maya's methodology. Similar growth has been experienced by other training organizations that have successfully integrated her approaches into their programs. The military applications of Maya's work have been particularly significant. Special operations units that traditionally relied on the most advanced equipment available have discovered that Maya's emphasis on fundamental skills and adaptability actually enhances their technological capabilities rather than replacing them. Soldiers who understand both cutting-edge equipment and traditional methods prove more versatile and effective in unpredictable operational environments. This versatility has become increasingly important as military and law enforcement agencies face evolving challenges that can't be solved through technology alone. Urban warfare, counterterrorism operations, and complex hostage situations require the kind of adaptive expertise that Maya's training methods specifically develop. Her students learn not just how to use tools, but how to think critically about when and why different approaches might be appropriate. The academic community has also taken notice of Maya's work. Researchers studying expertise development and performance under pressure have found her training methods particularly valuable for understanding how complex skills can be maintained and improved over time. Several universities now offer courses that incorporate Maya's principles into their criminal justice and military science programs. Professional journals have published extensive analyses of the Maya Thompson effect, examining how her story challenges conventional assumptions about expertise, authority, and professional development. These academic discussions have influenced policy development at institutional levels, leading to reforms in how military and law enforcement agencies approach training, promotion, and leadership development. The international implications of Maya's influence continue to expand. NATO has incorporated elements of her training methodology into standardized precision shooting curricula used by member nations. Her manual has been translated into 14 languages and is used by police and military training organizations on every continent except Antarctica. This global reach has created opportunities for cross-cultural learning that have enriched Maya's own understanding and teaching. Students from diverse backgrounds bring different perspectives and techniques that Maya has integrated into her evolving methodology. The result has been a truly international approach to tactical training that draws from the best practices of multiple military and law enforcement traditions. Maya's personal satisfaction, however, seems to come not from her professional recognition, but from the individual success stories of her students. She maintains correspondence with hundreds of former students who update her on their careers and accomplishments. Her office at the academy is filled with photographs, letters, and mementos from grateful professionals whose lives have been positively impacted by her instruction. The most recent addition to this collection is a photograph from Officer Rodriguez, now promoted to SWAT team leader, showing his successful completion of an FBI precision shooting instructor course. His accompanying letter reads, "Maya, everything I've accomplished in my career can be traced back to that afternoon when you showed us what real expertise looks like. Thank you for teaching me that respect is earned through character, not credentials." These personal connections represent the true measure of Maya's impact. While her influence on institutional policies and training methodologies is significant, the individual lives she's touched and improved demonstrate the deeper value of her contributions. Students who learned not just technical skills, but life lessons about perseverance, humility, and professional excellence carry those lessons throughout their careers and share them with others. The transformation continues to accelerate. Maya recently announced plans for an advanced training facility that will serve as a center of excellence for integrated tactical instruction. The facility will offer programs not just in precision shooting, but in the full range of skills that modern tactical professionals require. Plans include partnerships with universities for research into human performance optimization and collaboration with international law enforcement agencies for cross-cultural training exchanges. Perhaps most importantly, Maya has established a scholarship program that provides training opportunities for deserving candidates who might not otherwise have access to advanced tactical education. The program specifically seeks applicants from diverse backgrounds who demonstrate potential that might not be reflected in conventional qualifications. It's a fitting legacy for someone whose own story began with being underestimated based on superficial appearances. Looking back on that afternoon 5 years ago when Maya assembled a sniper rifle in 6 seconds, it's clear that the real demonstration was never about technical skill. It was about the importance of recognizing human potential wherever it might be found, of treating others with respect regardless of their current circumstances, and of understanding that expertise takes many forms and can emerge from the most unexpected places. Maya Thompson transformed Phoenix Tactical Academy not by changing our equipment or our facilities, but by changing how we think about people and potential. Her legacy isn't measured in the precision of her shooting or the comprehensiveness of her credentials, but in the countless individuals who learned from her example that excellence is always possible. Respect must always be earned, and character matters more than credentials. The barista who could assemble a sniper rifle in 6 seconds became something much more significant, a catalyst for transformation that continues to ripple through professional communities around the world. Her story proves that the most important lessons are often taught by people you'd never expect to be teachers, and that the greatest expertise is sometimes hidden behind the most humble circumstances. Today, Maya continues to serve excellent coffee 3 mornings a week and teach precision shooting to elite tactical professionals the rest of the time. She embodies the principle that true mastery means bringing complete dedication to every task, Whether you're steaming milk for a latte or preparing officers for life or death situations. In a world that often confuses noise with substance and credentials with capability, Maya Thompson remains a quiet reminder that excellence speaks for itself, and that the most dangerous person in any room might just be the one you never notice. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.